Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Force of Will Deck Builds. This is your host, Endoralis, and I'm here to give you one of my favorite decks I've ever made. It was called Magical Man Adelbert. Now, most people don't have Adelbert decks for some reason or other because he was kind of hard to do, or at the time for the meta, he wasn't that fast, or yada yada yada. But I've always saw Adelbert as like a 5-color ruler because he gets abilities on his J ruler side based on what resonators come in. So you play resonator heavy decks or decks that can get resonators really quick, and that's what you do. This is a Wanderer deck, so this is a Force of Will Wanderer deck, which means I get to utilize a lot of cards from the older sets. And another thing I just don't have to worry about, or you don't have to worry about in Wanderer, is that Farrah's Spell is banned, and Severing Winds is also banned, and Sherry's banned, but like, I mean, I wasn't really worried about that part, but she's banned too. So you have all those things that normally kind of be an issue because they get rid of quick cast or all that. They're banned. Lorite's still there, so he's gonna still kind of be annoying, but that's just something you're gonna have to deal with. That's fine. So, right, uh, we start off with our ruler, Adelbert, who is basically red ruler. He flips for 4. We're not gonna use his ruler side like ever. He gives Wanderers first strike. That's never gonna happen. But what is gonna use is his J ruler side. Now, when you flip Adelbert, he has a special ability that as he comes in, he gets to take a Wanderer from your hand, which I've included in the deck. There's only one. From your hand and place it out on the field. So that means that you can get a free Wanderer. It doesn't matter what the cost, they just come in. That can be lore righted, of course, but oh well. And then you go down the line, he has effects based on the amount of the color of the resonator that comes in. So if a red resonator comes in, he hits target resonator for 500. If a white one comes in, he gets +2, +1, +1 counters on himself. If a wind one comes in, he gains barrier and flying. If a black one comes in, your opponent discards a card. And normally you use that with like Dark Alice, but this works fine with this deck. And then if a blue one comes in, you draw a card. So utilizing the fact that he gets things based upon what resonators come in, you ideally want to utilize him, quickly flip him so that you can get all the stuff you want. Because after that point, you either tap him for stones, you don't care, or you start swinging for game with him, and then you just hit people out. So going past the ruler, we go to our first resonators because I go resonators, chance, and then additions. In this deck, the first resonator is actually Black-Moon Fairy. Black-Moon Fairy is your 1-cost black. Her main effect to come in is that when she comes in, you choose a non-black fairy resonator in the graveyard, and you get them to your hand. That means you can recover any of your 1-drops before that you drop. Let's say you drop anything really, and she gets it back. So you get her first. You have 4 of her, and she's a really good resonator because you're going to be using that a lot. As long as your resonators go to the graveyard, you're actually fine. You usually don't care because of the way this deck works. After that, it is 4 of Escort of the Fairy King. Escort of the Fairy King is a quick cast card. It's 1 green, and it also has the ability of it's flying. And so you basically utilize Escort of the Fairy King to come in, block because it's a 0/6. Usually it won't die because it's a 0/6, and most things don't have a lot of attack power at that beginning. And then she also barriers a fairy, so you can cast her and barrier something else, or you can cast her and bury herself. And then with the way Adelbert on his J ruler side works, you can cast her, bury her, or something else, and then Adelbert also give bury all at quick cast speed. You can't fault that. The next one is going to be Fairy the Malefic Tree. You got 2 of those. Fairy Malefic Tree main effect is that you pay 300 life, which you aren't going to care about at all. I'm going to tell you this now as we get further in. And whatever resonator they hit, it dies. It doesn't matter how strong it is. As long as this one does damage to another one, they die. That's why you have it. You have it for like spot removal for the big one, big beasties you don't want to deal with, before you can attack into them. And of course, it has flying, so it can attack into resonators unless they have blockers that are also flying. The next one is 4 flame sprites. Flame sprites have swiftness, flying, and they tap and they do damage equal to the amount of fairy resonators you have times 100. Meaning, as soon as you play this card, you can play it and swing for 200. First game. At the very beginning, or you can wait a little later, play it, tap it, and then do damage to a resonator based on the amount of fairies you have on the field. And then it also combos with the fact that if you play it right after Adelbert, his ability procs, you hit something for 500, she swings and it hits you for damage, or you tap and then she kills something outright. And that's her by herself. Tap, do another 100, kill it, 600 damage. The next is 2 Flutes Water Dragons. Flutes Water Dragon it's not a fairy, but it's blue, and that's important in this deck, and it can fly, and that will be important in this deck. The other thing is that it allows you to utilize Adelbert offensively if you catch card. It's not, not needed, but if you catch card, it allows you to do Adelbert offensively and still tap for stones. And then later on, it gets flying, and it also gets big enough that it doesn't die from certain things. It's a pretty good card. Now, after that, we have 3 Light Sprites. And Light Sprite was the reason why you're not going to care about losing life or anything like that, or taking damage most of the time, because Light Sprite is a white card that taps and gives you life for every gives you 100 life for every fairy you control. So Light Sprite can getting back with Black Moon Fairy. You can push it out earlier. Hell, even if you play it first and then they go to your opponent's turn, this is the first turn play. It goes to the opponent's turn, and even if they kill it, you can tap it to get the 100 life. It goes, but you still get that 100 life. That still happens. It's gonna make it where you can do Malefic Tree and not worry about it. It's gonna make it where you can do other damage effects and just not worry about it, and just push yourself so high that the opponent can't actually kill you out because you have too much life. The next one is 3 Queen's Envoys. Now, Queen Envoy is great because it costs 1, of course. It costs 1, and it also has the ability where it can block while tapped. So you can utilize it to tap it for any effects later on, or you can utilize it to attack into somebody, do some damage, and always have a blocker. Nowadays, people have a lot of rest effects, so blockers are hard to get, and then that's how people get damage through. But as long as you have this on the field, it will be able to block. And since it can always block, either when it's tapped or not, you don't care. You can actually block with this card, and if you're ballsy enough, block with it and it doesn't die, block again because it's still tapped and it can still block. It's still great. That's why you have 3 of them. You don't need 4 of them. Because I usually recursion them because they die and you Black Moon Fairying them back or something like that, but usually it works out, so you don't need another one. Then there's 3 Wind Sprites. Wind Sprites are they can't be attacked. Well, no, they can be attacked. Wind Sprites produce light. There's going to be cards in here that produce light, and it's green, so it's green and gets you light. Later on, you're going to need it, and it's a mana ramp for fairies, and it's still a fairy. I can't complain about that. And then we go to the 2 drops. This one is I wouldn't say a staple, but this one's pretty strong. It's Fairy of Recurrence. Now, Fairy of Recurrence came from a newer set, LEO, and it comes in as red and white, and it comes in and gives you a search out of your deck. So you search your deck immediately for another one. So if it comes down to it, you'll never not have plays. If someone starts hitting you with card discard, you can at least play this, and then get another one, have in your hand, then play that one, get another one, have in your hand. You start having a hand again. And then if you get it back from the graveyard through Black Moon Fairy, well, Black Moon Fairy is more than one, but if you get back to the graveyard, it can proc again and again. So even if you don't have any more cards in your deck, it still gives you a free shuffle. So if someone tries to stall you out by putting cards on top of your deck, you can get outside of that by doing this. It's a pretty good card. The next is 2 Grimious Fairies. Because Grimious Fairy is a new card from Winds of Ominous Moon, it is Drain and Flying. It's 2 white. You can get white. It's not going to be much of a problem either through the wind sprite or through you just using stones. But it's flying, and that's important because there's going to be cards that benefit from that, and it's fairy, so it's going to be benefiting from the fact that it's fairies. It still gives you damage and life by existing, and then when it attacks, it does damage, and then you gain life based on that. It's a good card. Now we go to we finally get to my card that's like the linchpin of this deck, and it is Midsummer's Night King Oberon. I have to look at the card for a second. Midsummer Night King Oberon gives all fairies quick cast in your hand. So any fairy you pick up, you can cast it on your opponent's turn. That's so good. It doesn't matter what's going on. You're like, oh, what's going on? Oh, nope, nope. It says fairy quick cast. Oh, nope. It's quick cast. It's quick cast, quick cast, quick cast. He himself has quick cast. So now that you don't have to worry about fairy spell, you literally only have to worry about the few counters, and they counter him out. You can possibly get him back, and that's not even a problem. That's why you have 4 of them. So once you get 1 of them, all the rest of them are going to be quick cast from that point on. And he's a flyer. So he's a 4/6 flyer. Has a little bit of butt for his case, but they made his attack a little lower because he could fly as well. You get to 2 of Titania Prideful Queens. Now she's a 6 cost, well 7 cost, but she has the ability where if you tap something, tap a resonator, it can reduce her cost by 2 colorless. Meaning you tap 3 resonators, she only costs 1 blue. She's a 1 cost. But she's still a 7 cost because you're just paying for the cost with other things. So she still doesn't get hit out by all these other effects because she's too big. And she comes out and she's a big flyer. And not only is she a big flyer who buffs everything that is either a fairy or water. So that Flu's Dragon, who's a water, he gets buffed. And all those fairies I said before are all buffed. They're all buffed. So everything's 2/2 bigger, except her, of course. And she's a big flyer, and she costs little. So you tap, Queen's Envoys. Now they can block, and they're 2/2 biggers. You can't complain about that. The last Resonator is actually Valentina the Crumbling Illusion, and she's the only Wanderer you have in the deck. And the whole point to have her is to throw her out when you do your Judgment. Her whole thing is that every time your turn comes up, you take a Resonator out of your graveyard, and it comes into the field. Resonator in graveyard. She gives you a draw, and it pops. With Adelbert, she gives you a draw, and it pops a card out of their opponent's hand, and then also makes it where any card that comes in also procs his effects. So you end up getting this, the Resonator that have been dying over the field because they've been trying to kill out all your little fairies. You come in, you're like, oh, now Adelbert's bigger. This comes in. Now we have quick cast because it's before you untap. Now my stuff have quick cast again, and he has barrier and flying for the turn. Things like that. It combos up. We move on to the chance. I have no 1-drop chance. Mainly because I haven't seen a reason for it, because usually this is a Resonator build, because Adelbert works on that. You got Circle of Trust, 2 of them. Circle of Trust gets you either 2 fairy Resonators, or buffs all the fairies on the field. So when you're going for the game, you're like, all my fairies are 4/4, swing dead. Or you're like, oh man, I need to get that Midsummer Night's King freaking Oberon. And you just go and get Oberon. And then you start up your deck. Now, of course, they know you have this at that point. So if they have card discard, you're going to be a little boned. But you get 2. You can get 2 of them then. And, unless he hits both of them out with like Glen Insight or something. You just work out fine. Next which is why you have a few of them, you have 3 Seal Wind Lights. They're white-green, they're counters, they counter any spell. Everything in the game is a spell that can usually be played. So those few times you don't want to deal with it, you just counter it out. You're not going to get rid of it. It's not going to come up too many times. If you get your Wind Sprite out, you can even get it out turn 2. Your turn 2, of course. Or if you get Energize. No, if you get Energize, you still can't do it. But you can do it with that. And it's really simple. It works out. It's fine. It's easy. That's your counters. Then it's your Destruction, which is Wing Trap. Wing Trap is if a chance standby. You don't have to, but you can play it either from your hand, because if the thing comes up and you have a green Magic Stone, which all your Magic Stones are generally going to be green, you can pop something if you have a Resonator with flying, and they don't. So it can be the biggest thing in the world, and it's destroyed because it doesn't have flying. You can do it at instant speed. almost all your resonaires are flying, so you don't care, and it works out fine, and it does what you need. And then we go on to additions. This is more for flavor. You could easily replace these with Charlotte's Transformation Water Magic, but I did it for flavor and because it's funny. And there's addition, because a lot of people don't have addition hate like that. They are called fairy flower extracts. You get 2 of them. It's an addition. It makes something really small. It makes it 2/3. It's just that. It doesn't get any bigger, and it's constantly that. So even if they get buffed or whatever, it's just a 2/3. It's base a 2/3, so it just will be that. It doesn't lose any abilities. It's not, like I said, it's not transformation water magic, but it makes them weak, and then they stay weak. So if you need to kill them out with something else, you just can. And then the last card are 2 Home of the Wingmans. Now, what Home of the Wingman does is make you funnel through this deck super fast. And it has another effect, which is tap effect, which is tap, make something 300 bigger as long as it has flying. Almost all your resonaires have flying, so you can tap make them bigger so they need to get that extra damage in, or tap make them bigger so they survive that hit. Its addition, like I said, people don't have much addition hate. And its other abilities, once per turn, if you play a resonaire with flying, you draw a card. So eventually it comes to the point where if you have 2 of those on the field, I mean, it hasn't happened much, but it does happen. You can tap, make something 600 bigger, smash into somebody with a small little dude, and also get a draw off it. And because of Adelbert, you'll play a flyer, get a draw, get Adelbert's effect off of them, and you can do this at instant speed with Midsummer Night King, so you can play it on your opponent's turn too, get a draw off that card. So every time you play a card, you get a draw. And sometimes every time you play a card, you get 2 draws, which means you'll always be either even or up when it comes to fights. Alright, so we go to the stones. Stones are pretty simple. You have 1 of each of the, we have two of each of the green and other colored stones. So green and red, blasting waves. Green and blue, deep wood. Green and white, gusting skies. Green and black, black silence. There is no green card. I like to use First Flight's Memorias, because that also gives you every color. And then on top of all that, so you have those 10. I tend to have 2 more, and the 2 more are the Stone and Heat Rays, which are red-white, because you need a little bit more red or white in the deck than you do need all green, but most of them are going to be green. And then we eventually go to the sideboard. Now, sideboard is actually pretty simple as well. Sideboard is effectively all those cards that you need. So all the cards that you need that you didn't get before is in the sideboard. So let's say you're going against additions. That's why you have 3 Fairies of Sacred Visions, because Fairy of Sacred Visions, 1 is a 1/6 for 1, so it has a big butt for what it is. It's a fairy, doesn't have flying, unfortunately. It is white, so it allows Adelbert to get bigger, and it pops itself to get rid of an addition or a chance standby. So you can pop it, and then next turn, Valentina, get it back, make Adelbert bigger, pop something else, and every turn pop an addition off. They don't have anything to stop that. You're just doing this every turn. Or you Black Moon Fairy it back and then do it again. You have 2 Protection of Alice's. Protection of Alice's addition, like I said, addition resonator specifically. So unless they just kill the resonator out or they pop it before you can target it, you put it on the addition. You put the addition on the resonator, and then the resonator gets 2 bigger for every resonator you have, which you're gonna have a crap ton of them. Release 2 of them. You have 2 releases, because sometimes people remove your stuff from play, and that's the thing that really bones you. Remove from play, especially with Evil Elemental Uprising, which gets rid of all your graveyard, and it's 1 black, and you can't chase it. That just sucks for you. That's why you have this. You're gonna have 2 Zero's Protection and Magic, or Zero's, Zero's Magic Circle, or Zero's Protection Circle. You gotta remember the name off the top of my head. Because it gives you pick a color, especially if you're going against one you know is going to be bad. You pick a color like black or red or white if it's really bad, and then they can't target any of your stuff on the field. So then it becomes they have to hit your field with widespread stuff. Then you have 2 of the new cards, Fairy the Holy Tree. It gives you barrier, and they're good. Gives you barrier. I mean, that's all I really say to that. That's why you have, and it's a fairy. It's green. And then 2 of the new Vivians. She gets cards back from the graveyard, and she doesn't have a color cost. I mean, well, color variance, and she does it, and it doesn't matter what it is as long as it's resonator. So that's pretty much the deck. It's pretty simple. Magical Man Adelbert is coming right at you, and it does its job. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed your time here. And as far as Wanderer is concerned, I still love it, and that's why I still do it. At least with my friends, it's fun. Still fun to do. Like, comment, subscribe. If you want any other decks that you're thinking about, don't mind placing something down in the comments so I can see what I can do with it. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed your time. May the Zen be with you.